as well.
I think there should be some clarification also of what their future policy is going to be. This wasn't just a kettle. They actually corralled people back into demonstrations. So people who, like Nina, were leaving, there were hundreds of people trying to leave the demonstration. Many of them were not prepared for standing out in the cold for hours. And instead, even if you had got through the initial line of police, you were pushed back along Whitehall by what was essentially an advancing army of police and police forces. It was quite an extraordinary thing. And if you ask them why, we were leaving, we were trying to get to a vigil organized by our union. They wouldn't allow us attend this. And you ask them why, and they said because there's been disorder behind you. So they were pushing us back into what they were calling disorder. The disorder was provoked by the kettling. It really did feel like the purpose of this was to intimidate people, to discourage people from going to future protests, to essentially to stifle public debate about issues that are of fundamental importance to the future of this country, issues that are, that are going to affect the lives of most of the youth of this country. And we can't even have a proper debate or demonstrate in public. It's become a very serious situation.
I think the Metropolitan Police need to be held to account for their policing tactics. They need to answer publicly about the tactics they use. They need to be clear about the tactics they use. And frankly, the public have lost trust in the police. The public do not want to see 14-year-olds charged by horses, kept in for hours and hours and hours in the freezing cold, for the police to stay silent over very serious incidents for months and months and months until official inquiries are over. This is unacceptable. There is a fundamental bridge between the people and the police now. The police have lost the trust. It's not policing by consent anymore, it's policing by truncheon. We've got the Metropolitan Police. They're almost a paramilitary style police force with riot shields, with truncheons, with taser guns, with armed police, with the TSG. The people of this country and protesters and people exercising their democratic right need to know what's going on, and frankly we need to hold them to account and say we don't believe in these tactics. It's wrong, it's undemocratic, and you're hindering our democratic society and provoking trouble.
And they photographed every single person as they left the rally. When you were able to escape the kettle, you were funneled down a long line, a narrow line of police, and you had to stop, have your photograph taken. I really have never seen.
We'd certainly like people, Liberal Democrats have got Liberal in their title. Do they believe in these heavy-handed police tactics? I'd like to know what Nick Clegg thinks about truncheoning young girls and police charging people who were on EMA, who he's about to take that EMA away from them. I think we need to have a very serious think about policing in this country. So, yes, Joe.
The police did release a statement in which they said that the containment tactics were there to prevent people from, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, sort of running riot around London and smashing, I think the words were unsuspecting buildings, was the exact quote. Do you think if the kettle hadn't been put on and that people were allowed to go as they please through, that the protest would have spread in a similar way to it did on November 30th?
Well, isn't it nice that the police are protecting unsuspecting buildings? What about the police protecting our democratic right to go to our parliament and protest? What about the police defending young people's right to stand on the street outside where their members of parliament are supposed to be deliberating on our behalf? I think that's the discussion we need to have. I am clear about this, and I think we all are. The police provoked what happened yesterday, anything that happened yesterday, with their actions, with their police charge, with their horse charging, and with their provocative actions. Do you want to comment on that, Flo?
Can I just, one version of yesterday's events is that there was an agreement to walk through Parliament Square to the embankment where there was supposed to be a rally, and the students simply didn't want to go to that rally. They wanted to stay in Parliament Square and try to force their way into the Palace of Westminster. So,
I don't know where we're getting forced their way into the Palace of Westminster.
Well, that's what
students wanted to stand in Parliament Square and outside where the MPs were voting. I think that's perfectly legitimate.
And a large number were trying to force their way through that line.
Because they were being kettled by the police into a square.
No, before the kettle. This was before the kettle.
I don't know about people trying to get into the Palace of Westminster.
Sort of picking up on that point, the agreed route was to walk through Westminster and carry on to Embankment. Why was the agreed route not to stay in Westminster? I spoke to some students beforehand, the day before the march, and quite a number sort of said, we don't intend to carry on through to Embankment, we intend to stay in Parliament Square. Were the police simply uncooperative in organising, a rally where you simply stayed in Parliament Square? was that not even on the cards? Was that not even possible to organise?
Claire negotiated with the police, so perhaps you comment.
We did request right from the offset to do a rally in Parliament Square in order to focus the attention of students into an area which is clearly a target, not target, but it is clearly the focus of people's anger on a day when a vote is going to be taking place. The police did refuse us to have the rally, and so we agreed to go up Whitehall and along Horse Guards Avenue into the rally organised by the NUS and UCU, and a number of us did go to the rally. My Facebook profile pic is me with a glow stick. Why everybody else didn't go, I think that's quite clear, that it's the Parliament that they're angry with, it's the government that they're angry with, and when you've got 35,000 angry students, forcing them to do anything is not a good idea. And they were partying, they were dancing. It was a very, very jolly atmosphere, as have all of our protests been, until there's been provocation and brutality by the police.
I think I would add that if you look at me, you can tell I'm not a rioting type. And I've been on many of these protests now, and I can tell you something. The atmosphere is peaceful, the atmosphere is fun, the atmosphere is positive. It's about positive change, it's about standing up for our rights. I didn't feel scared in Parliament Square, I didn't feel there was anything terrible going on, apart from when I was near police. Any other questions?
One more. Again, reading the papers today, the violence seen from protesters is marked as being student protesters. Would you say that the people that the violence that's come from those people that aren't the police, were they protesters, or were they? I know my experience of being at the protest, there have been sort of North London gangs down there. There have been people simply there to cause violence that weren't there for the real issues. Do you think that?
I get the question. Yeah. Basically, we organised a peaceful protest. What happened, we think, was provoked by the police. We're not going to get drawn further. We've had a press conference this morning and said quite a lot about that. This is about Alfie Meadows' injuries, and that we think the police are unaccountable for their actions, and I think that's come over clearly. There are several things we're asking the police to do. We're obviously thinking about Alfie at the moment and other people who've been injured, and I think that's a good place to end, so thank you very much.
Could you just bear with me a second? Okay. Cameron has this lunchtime, I think, announced that he's going to be bringing the full force of the law onto protesters from yesterday. I think we've already seen more than the full force of the law on our protesters, and so I think Cameron is deluded if he thinks that people that agree with the police tactics. I think what they're going to see is the full force of what we call our big society against the government and their their attacks on all of our public services. And what we're calling on people to do is obviously get involved in the campaigns, in the protests. We've got a number of protests coming up. We've got a vigil today, 2 vigils for today actually, for Alfie, one at 3:30 and one at 6. They've been organised by his friends and family and fellow students from his universities, both at Middlesex University and at Roehampton. The protests are both at the Charing Cross Hospital, but it's at Hammersmith. Is that the actual Fulham Palace Road? So please do come along and show your support. Bring banners, any banners that talk about police violence, police brutality. We want to stamp this out. Also want to say that Scotland Yard have already been in contact with me again to negotiate and discuss demonstrations that apparently have been planned for tomorrow, and also one that we know has been planned to defend EMA on Monday. We're going to have a serious discussion afterwards about how we're going to do this with Scotland Yard, but I did say to him, at the moment I'm much more concerned about the police violence and my friend in hospital. So we'll let you know the outcome of future negotiations with Scotland Yard. There was one, yes, and so also Sean has already laid out what we want from people. We want the police to be put under investigation. We want the Independent Police Commission to IPCC to bring these unelected police officers to account. We want the CCTV footage to be released immediately, not like Ian Tomlinson, when it took days and days and days, and then in fact it was somebody's mobile phone footage that was released, that was used. So we want all CCTV footage immediately released, and we urge all witnesses for any incidences that happened at the demonstration to come forward. We've got plenty of lawyers that are prepared to take up these cases, and I know a number of MPs are also going to assist us in this campaign. So if you get in contact with us, if you have any witness statements, that would be very useful, and please keep up the fight.
Thank you very much.